Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening, thanks for joining us. Opponents of a Westbury prison are overjoyed tonight, winning a 3-year battle to stop a northern prison being built in their backyard. The Corrections Minister told State Parliament the facility will now be placed at the Ashley Youth Detention Centre when the site closes in 2 years' time.
After 3 years of fiercely protecting their patch, finally a major win for these Westbury residents.
There have been a lot of tears here in Westbury today, so we're quite ecstatic about the decision.
The group held grave concerns for the Brushy Rivulet site when it was named the preferred location.
You've got a mast owl there, you've got a wedge-tailed eagle's nest nearby, so if anything those values have grown, they haven't diminished.
The local mayor agrees the process wasn't up to scratch.
I think the government themselves should look at it and say, OK, we didn't do it that well to start off with. Hopefully this time around they will do a better job.
The Corrections Minister made the announcement in State Parliament, revealing the troubled Ashley Youth Detention Centre will transform into the Northern Prison when the site closes in 2 years' time, housing up to 270 inmates by 2029.
I can confirm that this means that the Ashley site is now the only site we are considering for the Northern Correctional Facility.
Good. But the opposition is questioning why it took so long to reach that decision.
The government just chose to ignore this for 3 years, and we know that it has cost hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars, and that was very frustrating for the people of Westbury.
There's a lot of consultation and feedback, due diligence that is required with respect to a multi-million-dollar development like this.
The Greens arguing Westbury locals have been subject to needless suffering.
There's probably a case for a class action of people against the government for putting them at this needless suffering.
It's certainly been a very tiring, exhausting and traumatic journey for a lot of people involved.
Justice for a community refusing to back down. Ainsley Kosh, 7 Tasmania News.
Protesters have gathered outside State Parliament to oppose a bill which would crack down on unlawful workplace invasions. If the anti-protest legislation passes, corporate entities could face penalties of more than $100,000.
You don't want any corporation involved in stimulating or supporting or being involved in a workplace invasion or stopping workers in their right to work or a business's right to operate.
Debate on the bill is underway tonight. A local Labor candidate is facing questions after a historical drug conviction surfaced. Chris Lynch says he's been transparent about his past as his party stands by the endorsement.
Mudslinging is an election campaign tradition, and a Labor candidate's past has now been dredged up.
I'm prepared to say that I have made this mistake and that I deeply regret making this mistake. There's not much I can do about it now.
Chris Lynch, candidate for Braddon, confirming he has a drug conviction from 1994 on his record. In his early 30s at the time, he was found guilty of having in his possession a quantity of methamphetamine valued at $1,200.
I was working in an industry where the culture was, they're pretty heavy around the use of that.
Sentenced to 120 hours community service, he claims it sparked a love of helping others. The now 59-year-old has since had a career as a VET teacher, youth worker and most recently a Burnie City councillor.
Working with people that have perhaps gone through things that I've gone through and look for ways to help them.
He says it's something he's never shied away from, having informed every employer and the Labor Party before they endorsed him. In a statement, ALP National Secretary Paul Erickson confirmed Mr Lynch had been fully vetted and that he had dedicated his life to serving others and would be an outstanding member. Mr Lynch says he's been transparent, even if this has only entered the public conversation now.
If it's been relevant to the situation, then I have disclosed it. But you're right, I don't start conversations with it.
He accepts it may cost him votes, but those 7 Tasmania News spoke to seemed unfazed by it.
No, it wouldn't affect me at all.
No, I know how Chris is at the moment. Fantastic guy.
If it was a minor drug charge and in so long in the past, I find it hard to get to.
Mr Lynch and the Liberal incumbent Gavin Pearce are currently battling it out for the bellwether seat of Braddon. Only time will tell whether this admission will be at the front of voters' minds when they head to the polls on May 21st. A possible campaign road bump as the race enters its final stretch. Josh Duggan, 7 Tasmania News.
The journalist behind a podcast exposing allegations of child sexual abuse at the hands of a former LGH paediatric nurse, James Jeffrey Griffin, has detailed the fear of sources coming forward to expose his behaviour. Camille Bianchi told the Commission of Inquiry that victim survivors she has spoken to believe not enough has changed within state-run institutions since their allegations were reported. The Commission of Inquiry is holding 6 weeks of hearings in Tasmania, examining the state government's responses to instances of child sexual abuse. COVID cases remain steady in Tasmania, with another 1,086 infections recorded. 46 people are currently in hospital with the virus and 3 patients are in ICU. The state government is now turning its attention to the upcoming flu season, launching a regional vaccination blitz to protect Tasmanians. Free flu shots will be available at more than 20 locations around the state next week. An incorrect steering setting was used in the Mersey River tugboat crash, according to a preliminary report into the incident. The Australian Transport Safety Bureau says the Goliath cement carrier's master discovered the area just as it collided with the York Cove and Campbell Cove tugs in January. A full report into the crash with analysis and findings is yet to be released. Potential flash flooding is on the way for parts of the state. From midnight, the SES will roll out a regional and state operations centre in southern Tasmania.
That east coast low that's still developing. It's anticipated that that will approach the coast in the southeast area with impact within the Huon municipality, with varying levels of rainfall dependent upon the circumstance as it evolves.
A severe weather warning is in place for damaging winds and heavy rainfall for the Huon catchment, Greater Hobart and parts of the east coast. Locals are being given this message from Tasmania Police.
Make good decisions about firstly whether you leave your home, and secondly if you do and you're driving on the road, if it's flooded, just forget it. You shouldn't try and traverse it.
We're being told to brace for river rises and flooding, with the most dangerous weather expected early tomorrow morning. A concerning number of Tasmania's LGBTQI+ community has been told their identity is a result of trauma and should be fixed. The statistic is part of a new government commissioned survey that's also flagged access to healthcare as one of the biggest concerns.
Coming to terms with his sexuality, sadly, hasn't been without prejudice for Trenton Hall.
Being, told that how you're feeling is not natural and how it's not correct, and sort of those mental battles to be like, okay, society's telling me to be this, but I don't feel this.
A move to the capital from regional Tasmania proved empowering for the student, but he wants acceptance for everyone.
Where a heterosexual couple can just hold hands and do whatever down the street, we have to think a lot more of where we are, how we do it, and we overanalyse the whole situation.
25 years on since homosexual decriminalisation in the state, a new report shows how many LGBTQI+ Tasmanians still experience struggles.
It's deeply disappointing that there are still same-sex partners in this state who don't feel comfortable holding their partner's hand in public. 5% of LGBTIQ+ Tasmanians have been through formal conversion practices.
The fine print painting a bleak picture of how the community view the healthcare system.
Some of the things in the report will be considered abuse, medical abuse, of invasive and unnecessary questioning and procedures that people experience.
They really want to see LGBTIQ specific mental health.
Abuse in public spaces still a constant for many, 17% revealing they feel somewhat or very unsafe.
This report is a blueprint for how we remove that discrimination and stigma and become a more inclusive and equitable society.
825 people shared their stories as part of the project, which was undertaken by University of Tasmania researchers. Advocates say while we've made significant progress in the community, there's still a long way to go in the space.
I think from this report, Tasmania could become one of the greatest places in Australia, if not internationally, for supporting LGBTIQ people.
Key priorities have been identified on how governments can improve their role.
Do you acknowledge there is a transphobic culture amongst some members of your party, including senior and influential members? You should tell us.
We believe that every Tasmanian, no matter what their background or circumstance, should be treated fairly, with respect, and have equal opportunity, of course, to engage in Tasmanian life.
But those behind the political conversation say labels aren't the way forward.
We are beyond this sort of mindset of what defines a human being.
Grace Evans, 7 Tasmania News.
2.5 years after a fall ended her racing career, Tasmanian jockey Raquel Clark is returning trackside as an owner. Her first yearling, Jag, is making his racing debut, helping Raquel turn a corner after the toughest days of her life.
At Black Hills near Westbury, Raquel Clark has a new spirit animal, Jag, bought on impulse and reviving the pulse in Raquel's racing world.
I love the horses and it's always been my favourite part about the racing.
Raquel's days on horseback ended instantly when she came off New Bay Flyer in this race at Morphettville in late 2019. Cameras missed the fall, but the injuries are everlasting. Short-term memory loss, the toughest of them all.
My life was 24/7 busy and now it's definitely not like that. It was definitely one of the hardest times of my life.
Having spent 6 years working non-stop as a jockey, often rising before dawn, Raquel senses a silver lining. Her new focus is on Jag and guiding him into races for 2-year-olds when he's of age later this year.
I just take it day by day now, and that's how I've had to look at things, whereas before in racing I was always looking ahead. You was always 2 weeks ahead of yourself.
At 28, trips to the physio are frequent and a hip operation is on the cards. But Raquel's at peace, having bought a farm at Latrobe where she plans to raise cattle, following a stunning, if short-lived, life in the saddle.
Being a jockey's 24/7. You know, you eat it, you sleep it, you breathe it, you exercise it. Everything you do revolves around that race ride. So, so it was a massive, massive life change. But it's all good. I've shut the door and I'm happy to move forward.
Vicariously through her new champion of the course. Tom Johnson, 7 Tasmania News.
The former Waratah Hotel will be transformed into a 50-bed crisis accommodation facility for men, providing transitional accommodation in Hobart to address the housing crisis.
Men will come in and they may transfer through the entire continuum, or they may then go on to some other state housing or even private housing.
Will begin later this month. A 60-year-old tree is getting a new leaf on life. A black gum located in Mount Nelson is being turned into a haven for local wildlife. The tree died suddenly earlier this year, but has been deemed safe to remain in the area. Students at Mount Nelson Primary School will monitor the Habitat Hotel's guests, local birds. They gathered today at the site, learning about the history of native trees and the importance of our wildlife.
Jack Jumpers showman Josh Adams has warned the game's experts not to underestimate their group's belief ahead of Game 1 of the historic Grand Final Series appearance. They take on tough competitors in the Sydney Kings, but Tasmania is determined not to go out without a fight as they continue the pursuit for an NBL championship.
You know, we just have to be very solid defensively, and the big thing is we have to be ourselves. We're not going to change or invent something the next 4 or 5 days. And if we win or lose, it's just, can we tweak some problems here and there?
Experts say we're not supposed to be here, but everybody on this team believes we are. We've earned it every step of the way, so our confidence is sky high because of our body of work and nothing else.
Plenty of fans from the Ant Army are expected to make the trip north, while local school children have already started the excitement ahead of tomorrow night's tip-off. That looks fantastic. Glenorchy's coach admits he fears for the State League's future after his club failed to field a reserve side on the weekend. It's at the point where SFL clubs are now reaching out to provide top-up players. After more than 100 years representing Hobart's northern suburbs, Glenorchy faced the indignity of fielding just the one senior team last week against Clarence and scrapping its Development League side. COVID, close contact rules and injuries from a lax pre-season are being blamed.
Unfortunately, those injuries, even though they are knees or breaks, if you don't complete a full pre-season, your body's not hardened and ready to go.
Making matters worse, the Pies were smashed by Larousse. They'll be able to field a reserve side this week as regional league clubs come to the rescue.
Brighton, who have reached out this week, Claremont Football Club have reached out this week to make players available.
Prompting a bare-knuckled analysis of the league itself.
I'm worried that we haven't got the best players playing in the best competition. That's been preached for quite some time. And us as clubs have got to do what we can to get those players back playing.
The show goes on this week when Glenorchy hosts Lauderdale, the giant killer which beat Launceston. Bryce Walsh is finally reaching game number 200 in an injury-plagued career.
Sort of be lost without footy, so from 150 to 200 now, it's probably been a bit longer than what I would have hoped, but yeah, to get there and to join some good players fantastic players in the league that have done that is, something special.
And in regional footy, Bridgnorth has put together its team of the decade after making 15 of a possible 30 grand finals across seniors, reserves and under-18s in the 2010s.
Been here 10 years now and we're still going for that same goal, so yeah, certainly you get a little bit addicted and want another taste of it.
Now the club needs to consider its team of the century. Bridgnorth was founded in 1923.
We did do a previous best team of all time in the late 90s that got put together.
The Parrots won 8 premierships from their 15 appearances during the decade. The first Tasmanian para-athlete has been named for this year's Commonwealth Games. Devonport's Jacob Templeton will race in the 50 metres freestyle as an S13 class para-athlete. At 26, this will be Templeton's first Commonwealth Games. He's currently living and training in Queensland on the Sunshine Coast.
Good evening. 16 our top today, recorded by Launceston, Devonport and Flinders Island. Hobart 14, Burnie 15. Temperatures close to average today after Lyaweenie's cold -5 overnight. King Island, Smithton, St Helens, Friendly Beaches and Bushy Park all 15. Grove and Strawn 14 degrees. Deep cloud moved over the east and south today. To 3 p.m. the highest rainfall was 9 millimetres, of course, at Grey. A cold pool of air sits to our west, partly cloudy conditions over central, eastern and northeastern areas of the nation. A frontal band pushes back over Queensland and the NT. Tomorrow, a broad area of low pressure lies over the east of the state with a front and trough to the northwest. We have winds on the up from the northwest to northeast, 35 knots as the low spirals around the state, swells to 3 metres. A severe weather warning for heavy rain and damaging winds has been issued for the south and east of the state. A gale warning for waters from Wineglass Bay to St Helens Point. A strong wind warning for remaining coastal waters. We also have a flood watch and flood warnings. They're being posted for many rivers. The Bureau website will have the full details. A warning to sheep graziers too for many grazing districts. Tomorrow, 15 and rain easing after being heavy in the start of the day for Hobart. Huonville, same sort of thing, 15 and 15 the top for Campania. Launceston, showers and 14, 13 the high for Devonport, showery for Georgetown with 13 the maximum. Burnie showers and 12, 14 for Strawn, showers for Wynyard, 13 degrees. Looking at St Helens, showers and 14, same for Swansea, Port Arthur, heavy rain easing and 16 tomorrow. And there's the next couple of days. Saturday, showery and windy. Conditions improving for most of us on Sunday, and on Monday, fine and partly cloudy apart from a shower over the west. Further north we go in a sunny 24 in Perth. Showers for Adelaide, Melbourne and Brisbane. Fine and sunny weather for the other capitals. Raining in Hobart, showery in Launceston and Devonport is partly cloudy. Kim, still recovering from your birthday. You can really party into the early hours of the afternoon, can't you?
Stop it. That is your news for now. We'll be back later with updates. Thanks for joining us. Good night.